Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and a very special welcome to a man who is, coming in from a very interesting place. It's do you call it a desert oasis? I know it's a very hot place, particularly in summer months, but he's coming in all the way from Dubai. He's a man who is a sales professional, a lifelong learner, investor, and as you hear him speak, has a tint of an Irish accent. Mr. Gary Daly, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Darren. It's great to be here. And yes, I would call Dubai the desert. And I think my tint of an Irish accent is because I spent a long time in Australia as well. So maybe you guys got rid of the accent a little bit, but it's still there.
Well, I was going to ask you actually, and we'll get into a bit of your background in a second. But how long since you've been in Ireland? I mean, when did you leave? At what age did you leave Ireland?
Yeah, so I guess that's sort of the origin story. Finished university at whatever age I was, 21, 22, and then went backpacking and ended up in Australia via South America and New Zealand, and then lived in Australia for 6 years, moved to London then for 4 years, moved back to Ireland for another 4 years, and then got the opportunity to move to Dubai. So yeah, I've been back and forth.
Well, I was going to say, because there's a lot of Irish people that I know that have various different degrees of accent in terms of their strength of accent. When you're speaking to family back home, do they say to you now, "Oh, you sound so Aussie," or "You sound so English," or "You don't sound Irish," or does it come back in terms of your Irish accent?
I think it always comes back, like especially when you're speaking to your mates, your friends, your family. When we get into our own conversations, we have our own language. I'm married to a British girl, and she always says to me, like, "I don't understand you when you're speaking to, your family." And it's so funny because in Australia, I had a very thick Irish accent, and I was a backpacker, so I worked in a pharmacy. And a lot of the people in the pharmacy did not understand what I was saying. They were looking at my lips. They were trying to like lip read. And then I got into sort of working in sales. And of course, you have to like learn to slow down. So I think over time, I've probably honed the pace of how I speak.
Well, we want to talk about, I guess your career, but also your life and your experiences, because you've also written a book called Built by Lessons, Turn Your Challenges into Triumphs. And there's lots of really cool information in there. We might even talk about the fact that you did go hiking up a mountain in -8 degrees with somebody just wearing a pair of shorts, which, mate, you're a glutton for punishment. But you've done a heap of other stuff. But before we jump into that, talking about your origin story, where did it start for you and what was it about Australia, but also London and now Dubai that has led you to do what you do today?
Yeah, great question. So I basically went to university, and I always say like the academic goals were sort of, I guess, bestowed upon me. I mean, it was like, go to school, get a good education, and then get a job. Instead of getting the job, I went backpacking with my two best mates and my twin as well, and didn't really know what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a football agent, or
Hmm.
soccer. Maybe as some people call it. I don't know what you guys call it in Australia because there's different sports.
Yeah.
But that's really what I wanted to do. Quickly sort of found out that that probably wasn't going to be likely at that point anyways. So I decided, okay, what jobs are out there? And recruitment seemed to be a big thing. And I quickly discovered that recruitment was, I guess, a fancy word for sales. And I then found a job in Australia, my first job after I worked in a pharmacy when I was, just backpacking and saving money.
Yeah.
And then I got into this sales job literally just before my visa expired. I'd already booked my ticket home. And luckily then this company decided to sponsor me. So I got into this job, and small startup in Sydney. I worked in Parramatta, which was a nice place to sort of work, to be honest. And in the first 2 weeks, my paycheck bounced and my colleague's paycheck bounced as well. And I sort of said, this isn't right. And then my manager sort of said, oh, like, we'll sort this out. And long story short, there was like financial sort of issues with the company, so much so that one of the guys working for the company who just joined with us sent a company-wide email saying, like, this isn't good enough. Everyone should just leave. I'm leaving. Like, and for some reason, I wanted to stay. I really believed in the founder. And to be honest, to this day, I'm still in touch with him, and like, there's no sort of bitterness or anything like that. So probably for the next 4 years, I really struggled. Like, we got paid every now and then, but obviously it wasn't like full pay. But I
Yeah.
really developed like the love for sales and actually trying to get out of this situation. So one day my twin came in, and he saw me on the futon and he said, I have a ticket for this Congress. It was called the National Achievers Congress. And the speaker was like Tony Robbins. Interestingly enough, Donald Trump was there before he was president. This is 2011, okay?
Yeah.
And then I just decided, you know what, like, life isn't really going anywhere at the moment. Why don't I go to this seminar? And that literally, I genuinely think, changed my life. I saw Tony Robbins as the first speaker, and I just started then consuming everything. Sorry, it just paused at the screen for a second, so apologies if you might have to cut it.
No, it's okay. We keep going. It didn't
Okay.
pause for me, so it might be the Dubai internet.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, it's like it's one of those updates on the computer, but I'm just saying update later, so apologies about that. Um,
No, it's all good.
so I could probably start again. So to be honest, that really changed my life. And after that, I then started consuming all of this content, and I really started to get better at sales, like booking more meetings. Obviously, the company was going through sort of administration and liquidation. So I sort of figured out I'm not in the right vehicle. I have all
Mm,
the knowledge now. So why don't I actually take this knowledge and move back to Europe? So I decided to move to the UK. I still sort of wanted to be a football agent, but I decided, hey, I need a real job. So obviously tech sales was where it was at. And then there was this company who were acquired by Cisco called Meraki. And I went for an interview there. I obviously didn't have the sales figures to back up sort of I guess, how I presented myself.
yeah.
So I got rejected for the first role, which was an inside sales role. But they
Okay.
they quickly called and they said, hey, like, we like you enough to offer you, like, sort of, I guess, the most junior position, which was an ADR, account development rep, or sometimes called an SDR.
Hmm.
Um, and then from there, to be honest, like, you can probably ask even more questions after this, but everything took off from there. And I have to thank the experience in Australia, because my mother always said, like, this was real university. It was like the school of hard knocks. And it really was. So it sort of, I guess, built up a bit of resilience in me that maybe I didn't have before that.
Well, let's just talk about that because 23, literally the first couple of weeks of working in this organization, the check was bouncing, the paycheck was bouncing. But you stuck with it, and as you mentioned, there was some sporadic payments across the board, and it wasn't necessarily um, smooth sailing, for want of a better term. Looking back on that, what was it that made you? Was it the belief you had in the founder? Was it the belief that things would turn around? What was it that kept you going? And looking back, what was one of the key lessons from that that has held you in good stead when you've been working with Meraki and so forth?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I'm very loyal, like, firstly, and I think that probably comes from my parents. So, like, I didn't want to give up for myself, and to be honest, also for, like, the company,
Yeah.
and some of the people that I worked with there. So I think loyalty and just knowing that I'd given my all and not walked away. Because I think if I walked away, I'd always think, what if I'd stayed and things really took off? So by the time I walked away, it was 4 years with the company. And I think I knew at that point I'd done everything I could do. And it was completely external factors. Like, I'd built myself up internally.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, to be honest, then when I started working with this the other company, Meraki, I think there was a humbleness to me. I think, and that stayed with me throughout my career and the company, because obviously the perks, everything is very different. Like obviously you're working for a bigger company, but I also have that humbleness to realize that like, this isn't what it's like in other companies. So
Mm.
be absolutely grateful for what you have now because it could be taken away from you in the morning. So like do your best and show up every day. Um, so that's probably, I think, the lesson.
I love that. And it's a great lesson, particularly in sales, because you're going to get knocked down. You're going to have customers that make a promise and then, I guess, renege on that promise. There's lots of things that can happen that are actually beyond your control. But the tenacity and the fortitude to keep going no matter what holds you in good stead because if you're in there for the long haul, eventually you're gonna come out as a winner, whatever winning actually is in terms of your own definition. Mate, you also mentioned that you went to the conference in 2011 and Tony Robbins and Donald Trump spoke. And you said it was a life-changing event. What was it about that was a life changer for you? Was it the first sort of personal professional development seminar you'd been to? Was it the pumping music? Was it the gravel voice of Tony Robbins? Was the fact that he was just a massive draw card? What was it? Was it something that lit the fire?
I always compare it to like the Matrix, like when you sort of see things differently for the first time. I mean, I walked in there and of course the music was going, but I think it was the first time that I actually took responsibility and basically thought like no one's coming to save you. Like this is completely up to you.
Yeah.
And I was around like-minded people for the first time. And I'll always remember like this lady who was beside me. She sort of said she was a bit older than me, maybe 20 years older. I was whatever, 24 at the time, whatever age I was. And she said, "Oh, I wish that I started coming to this when I was your age." And then I saw people who were even younger than me, and I said the exact same thing. I wish I was coming when I was your age. So, the student is sort of, or the teacher appears when the student is ready type thing. So, I think that was probably the takeaway that now I can take on the responsibility for my life and my career, everything.
And when you look at that, because I'd love to delve into, obviously, we want to talk about the book as well. Was there something that was already there that had just been amplified in that? Because you mentioned that there's nobody there to save us, and at the end of the day, we've all got the capability, but many of us choose not to demonstrate that capability because of limiting beliefs, who we hang around with, what people have perhaps told us, etc. So all the external stuff. Was there something that you grabbed hold of from that weekend that almost became the catalyst that kind of started to drive the story for the next X number of years?
Yeah, I think what I saw from there was like I started to think about future Gary. For sort of lack of another word, I started to think, okay, what habits can I build now that's actually going to like be very beneficial for Gary in 10 years time and 15
Mm.
years time. So I think it gave me more of a long-term view and that I needed to be a student of the game. So like sales courses, like so I actually put money on the table then because they sort of say pay to play. You can sort of look online and listen to different things, but I think when you actually put your money forward, and I didn't have much of it then,
Mm.
and I wanted to buy everything in that seminar, every speaker, and I literally had to borrow from my twin brother who was there with me, and then buying a course like that sort of just, I guess, set the trajectory of like what I was going to do in the future, and I mean, even this past weekend, like I took Friday off work for a 2-day mastermind. So like I'm still doing it today. So it's not like you land, you arrive one day. You've constantly got to invest in yourself. So maybe investing in myself was probably the key thing, and that you're never the finished article, I think.
And I love that. And unfortunately, too many people uh, don't invest enough in themselves, or they'll put a price on, say, a seminar or a book or a course or even I don't know a 2-day mastermind. So, well, that's really expensive, and yet they will not even blink at paying for streaming services or some sort of car they probably don't need, whatever the case might be, not realizing that investment in yourself is going to pay dividends multiple times over if you take what's actually shared in that and tap into it and utilize it moving forward.
100%. And it's a bit like short-term pleasure, like whatever, like the Netflix or the night out on a Saturday, and then it's long-term pain. So,
Mm.
if you sort of flip that around, like sort of short-term pain and long-term pleasure, I think that's more of the way to look at it, in terms of investing in yourself.
And I think there's a lesson there a lot for salespeople, but also for business people as well. And that is, you mentioned before that you pay to play, but people who pay, companies that pay, individuals that pay, also pay attention. So there's a lot of people out there looking for the free advice, and I get it all the time. Can I buy you a coffee and ask you questions and all that sort of stuff? They're happy to do that, but if you're not going to invest in yourself, then I'm not going to give you some free advice because you're probably not going to implement it anyway. So pay attention if and pay for it. So the other thing I wanted to ask you, you've also done a lot of stuff. We'll talk about your mountain climbing in a second, but you won a global pitch competition. And you also mastered the art of public speaking, and you shared with me just before we press record that you just finished a diploma of coaching. So we'll get into that. But talk to me a little bit about the process you went through around the global pitch competition in front of these Fortune 500 execs. What led to that, and how have you gone about mastering the art of public speaking? Because it's an art form that not a lot of people get good at.
Yeah, good question again. So public speaking is like a lot of people, I think it's not natural to people. I mean, it is sort of something that everyone fears from what I understand. So my first bit of public speaking was I did a master's in project management in Dublin, and we had sort of a group presentation, and I still remember it to this day. I had a suit on, looked the part, although I was a skinny and lanky, maybe 19, 20-year old. And I literally sweated through my suit after and during my presentation, so
Wow.
much so that I had to actually leave the room. So like I am quite an anxious and nervous person, I guess, in my sort of, I guess, early years, so to speak. So that was my first bit of public speaking. And then when I started getting into sales, I decided I need to start investing in this because you watch the speakers on the stage and it's almost like watching a really good footballer. It's like the positioning, the way they look at the audience, everything about it is very sort of mesmerizing. You can tell that these people have clearly sort of crafted this over time.
Mm,
So what I decided to do was as soon as I joined sort of the Fortune 500 company that I work for now, I decided to invest in myself again, and I heard about Toastmasters. So I decided to attend Toastmasters. And for anyone in your audience that doesn't know, it's basically like a global organization that is everywhere. Like it'll be in
mm,
Sydney, it'll be even in my hometown in Galway in Ireland and Dubai. And it's just like a group of people who want to come together and get better at public speaking and sort of perfecting the art of this. And I'll always remember in London, I signed up sort of free to begin with. Obviously, you have to pay then for the membership, but I signed up for something called the table topic, and I didn't know what I signed up for. And basically, I go up and they say, "Okay, Gary, you have 2 minutes to talk about why Ant-Man should win an Oscar." And I'd never seen the movie, and they literally said like go. So all of a sudden I'm here and I'm looking at the audience, I'm sweating, I literally do not know what I was saying, I'm blabbering, I'm just pausing, and it was the longest 2 minutes of my life. Felt so bad and sort of humiliated after. I sat down, they gave some positive feedback and then they gave some constructive criticism. After me, they asked another member a sort of a similar question, but they were clearly sort of masters of what they were doing. They'd attended these things before. I could see that they had a structure. They had a beginning, a middle, and an end.
mm,
Some of them would ask the audience, who here has seen Ant-Man? Others would say, hey, I remember seeing the guy in Ant-Man in an episode of Friends. Who here watches Friends? So they were using different techniques. Some of them would just pause for a second and breathe. And I quickly discovered, okay, there's a structure to this. So every 2 weeks I would attend, I would get better and better and better. And I started sort of winning a lot of the awards there. They give out like, a sort of the best speaker on the night, that type of thing. And then our company launched a sort of a global pitching competition that
hmm
started sort of in the UK. Then you'd go up against other teams in Europe, and then so against the Australian teams and the Asia Pacific, and then a big final. And in the final, the CEO of the company, and bear in mind, this company is 90,000 employees. Um, Now, the competition was between maybe 2,000 salespeople in my particular division.
Yeah.
And they ended up winning that. And a lot of it was from what I learned in Toastmasters. But of course, a lot of it as well was I don't have all the answers. So, maybe I ask someone else who's technical in the company, how can I sort of simplify this answer? So it was a 5 minute pitching competition. And I practiced, practiced, and practiced. I learned that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And one of my mentors in Australia, a Kiwi, lovely guy called Neville, he basically said, like, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you've just told them. And it's so simple.
Yeah.
And really, then I won the next competition as well a year later in front of other executives. And I think one of the key things that I did, I got offered a role to move back to Ireland in a field sales role. And I decided that in my inside sales career, I never really did many events or public speaking. That was how I sort of reflected. So I said,
Yeah.
no matter what happens when I go to Ireland and Scotland, which I was covering, any opportunity I get, I'm speaking in front of the public, any opportunity. And it was nearly so much so that, like, if I went to get, a glass of water in the fridge at night, I open up the fridge and the light comes on, I'm nearly like presenting, because I was sort of in that rhythm. So that's how I got better. It was just exposure, like exposing yourself, and it never gets easier. You just get better over time, I think.
Well, I love that because you started by saying when you were 19, you sweated through your entire suit and had to sit down and leave. But you probably still have levels of anxiety because it's natural because you'll have nervousness. Maybe that's nervousness in terms of anticipation about what's to happen. It could be nervousness. In fact, I'm about to pitch in front of a big board, so we don't know what the outcome is. So we want to do really well. But it's a skill set that I don't think many people can master because far too many people give up too early because they believe the narrative they're giving themselves and that, hey, this is not meant to be, I'm not good enough, and any other limiting belief you want to throw into it. The fact that you kept doing it and you went back to back is a good thing. Is a really good thing.
Oh yeah, no, it was amazing, and there's still that humbleness there, as you said. You're never going to know it all. So, like, even at the weekend, I had to speak in front of sort of the audience at the seminar that I was at, and of course, there's always a bit of nerves, and I actually find that people are more nervous in the Monday morning meeting, which is with their colleagues, than they are in front of like a room full of strangers. So,
Yeah.
I can't really explain that one, to be honest, but
Well,
yeah.
and I'd love your take on this because having worked in sales for 20 plus years and now trained sales teams and sales leaders, I'm staggered at the number of salespeople and sales leaders that would rather do anything other than stand up in front of a group, even their own team, because it's a staggering thing. I just don't get it. I don't get
Yeah,
it.
I can't explain it. It's just, I guess, if you don't use it, you lose it type thing.
Yeah,
So, like, unless you're constantly doing it, it's going to become a sort of an anxious thing, I think.
100%. Now you mentioned also before we press record that part of the, I guess, the investment in yourself and your professional and personal development has involved breath work. And for people who don't know this, uh, calming your parasympathetic nervous system is a great way to, I guess, manage for want of a better term, your nerves, your anxiety. How have you found breath work to impact not so much just your presenting and public speaking skills, but just problem solving, dealing with challenges, dealing with obstacles, just dealing with the day-to-day stuff? How have you found breath work has had an impact on you?
Yeah, I'll probably take it back to when I was in Australia. So, like I mentioned, I'm probably naturally like a bit of an anxious person. People would classify me as extroverted, but I think I'm probably a little bit in between. And in Australia, I developed the art of waking up early, and I really took that on in London, getting up at 5 a.m. So you're sort of ahead of everyone else. And I also found meditation when I went to these seminars as well. And that really started to calm me down. Probably where breathwork came in was I went to Vegas with the company and I landed back in London. And it's a long flight, maybe sort of 11, 12 hours. And
Yeah.
my back was absolutely killing me. I went to sort of different physios, and long story short, it turns out there was a slip disc in my back. And I went to this one physio, and he was really good. He was very different to the other physios, and he was more on sort of like you're very tensed up, like your breath is so important. And he taught me that. And then he said, "Have you ever heard of someone called Wim Hof?" And I'd read about him in a Tim Ferriss book called Tools of Titans. And
Mm.
Wim Hof is this Dutch daredevil who, if you Google him, you'll see everything about him. But he sort of climbed Everest in just his shorts, and he's world records in terms of submerging in ice and going into ice cold water and been able to almost control his sort of nervous system through breathing and been able to be almost like comfortable in that cold water. So I said, yeah, I've heard of him. And then I quickly Googled him and he was coming to London. So I signed up for this, once again, investing in myself. And he said basically, like, bring shorts and a yoga mat. And I thought that's pretty cool for a seminar. And all of a sudden, I'm in this seminar and he's teaching us about breathing and how it sort of heals your nervous system. It reduces like the sort of, I guess, the fat levels and all that different stuff. And then he said, we're going to go into an ice bath after this. And obviously, you're very nervous with that. But he said, you've got to use your breath when you go in there. So I get into the ice bath. It's fight or flight. Like, I want to get out. I want to get out. And then you have a teacher there who's like almost looking you in the eyes, like, breathe in and breathe out. You're breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. And it's a very long exhale. And
Mm.
all of a sudden, I feel like my back just healed, like no word of a lie. And obviously, I was doing different types of sort of stretching, but I really felt, okay, this is really helping me. And then I decided to commit to like doing cold showers. So I even set up a WhatsApp group with my mates saying like cold shower done, um, and all that type of stuff started helping me. And then I went to more sort of Wim Hof retreats, as they're called, one in Ireland with a certified instructor. And then I
Yeah.
went all in. I said in January 2020, I went to Poland with Wim Hof and maybe 50, 60 other people just before COVID hit. And that was one of the best weeks of my life. Like, it was breathing, it was going into ice cold water for 10 minutes. And I just felt absolute bliss. I was literally experiencing a lot of gratitude. Unless you've done this, it just sounds sort of absolutely crazy. Like you're off at the fairies. But to tie it back then into a business setting, of course, if you're presenting, like, you'll do a couple of breathing sessions before you present, and that does help you. But
Mm.
where I really saw that it helped was probably everyday life. So, for instance, like, I go to this event with my colleagues, and coffee spilled on my laptop, and I don't know if it was me or if it was a colleague. It's still a debate who knocked the coffee and went all over my laptop. And normally I would go red and I would be like heart palpitating. I was so cool and zen. And the person beside me goes, "How are you not freaking out? Like, if that was me, I would be all over the place." And I genuinely put it down to the breathing. And then I look at other areas of my life as well. And you're not always perfect. Of course, there's stress. Like, it doesn't heal everything. But for the most part, I found that doing this practice, I do it every morning, typically. And I just find that it really just sort of eases me in, and calms me down and brings me back
Mm.
into like a really nice place. And I think it gives you patience. And someone described patience to me like, when I walk into the cold water, there's no point in fighting it. It just is. So you've got to like surrender, like,
Mm.
just let it be. So patience for me is like surrendering. And as you get older, and sales, to relate it to sales, the younger me would have been, everything is on that deal, like, it consumes everything. Whereas now it's like, if it's meant to be, like, if I've done all the work that I can do, that's it. Like, I
Yeah.
just have to let it be. So
Absolutely. It's as you were talking there, I'm thinking Mel Robbins came into my head and about the let them theory, and then I was thinking Bob Proctor talks about the fact that let go and let God, and that is you do everything within your, I guess, human faculties to get the best result, but ultimately the decision is going to be the decision, and whatever that decision is, you'll be able to deal with it. Not getting too caught up on that because there are so many people, as you just alluded to, that put so much pressure on having to get the right result, and they're thinking, if I don't get this deal in a sales context, what is my manager going to say? What is my sales director going to say? What is my partner going to say? Because we won't be able to afford that thing we were going to do, etc., etc. So all this pressure, and sometimes we can try too hard, and we can now start to push which is not what we want to do. You want to be able to let it go and let it happen.
Totally. And actually, my mentor, Aidan O'Brien, he's an Irish guy who coaches in Dubai, he said it's already done.
Mm.
Like, as in, it's already happened. So, and I really like that. That gives me a lot of peace.
Well, it means you don't have to, and certainly from a sales context, I say this to sales teams and salespeople all the time, is you don't have to attach so much pressure on having to get the perfect outcome. You disassociate from the outcome. What you're trying to do is create an environment where the customer can make an educated buying decision. My job is to give them every opportunity with all the information so they feel comfortable that maybe I've got the solution that they're looking for. If it is, fantastic. If not, hey, say la vie, there'll be another one, right? Or there may be an opportunity down the track, or there might be a referral they give me that it might come back.
Exactly. And it's really, and it's something I'm trying to tap into more. It's like service, like being of service to people. I know a lot of the Americans, their sales gurus always talk about that, but it's probably something that I'm trying to tap into a lot more. I mean, you're there providing a service. So yeah,
Well, it's funny you should say that, Gary, because I one of my key philosophies is sales is the ultimate form of service. So if I'm not being of service, then I'm not giving you every opportunity to make an educated purchasing decision that's going to benefit you. Yes, I'll get benefit from it as well, but I'm not doing it for that reason. I'm doing it because I want to serve. Now, if we end up doing business, fantastic. If we don't, then what have I left you with that might keep me top of mind for when you are ready to make that educated buying decision? So it's planting seeds for future.
yeah, and even like as a younger salesperson, I think that's such an important thing to learn, especially like in a company as well, because you don't know who you're going to meet, and
Mm,
like just because they say no now, it doesn't mean that in the future they're going to say no. So I think
yeah,
just try and once again try and be in service even in your company as well,
yeah.
because who knows what that's going to lead to. You might leave the company, they might join another company, and they'll remember you. Like this person actually, they were authentic. So yeah, I think it acts in both sort of the internal in the company and external with your customers.
100%. Now, before I ask about the book, I do have a question that's been percolating at the top of my mind just since we've been talking, and that is you strike me as a different type of cat, and I say that very respectfully in a corporate organization. You're working for a big global organization, and yet there's a number of situations and a number of things you've described where you've heavily invested in yourself. What do you think has separated you from a lot of your colleagues? Because I know, having spent 20 plus years in corporate myself, there are a lot of people in corporate organizations that expect the company to professionally develop them, to pay for coaching, mentoring, mastermind sort of stuff. What is it that has driven you? And was it the origins of what you talked about back in Sydney that has enabled you to continue to place a focus and an emphasis on self-development, personal development, professional development, where you have funded it?
Yeah, I think it goes back to Australia again. I fell flat in my face. And that really humbled me. And like, you don't forget that. If I'm being honest, I always think this. If I had stayed in a solid company and I was working the 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, I don't think I would have developed that. I think I would have been like, oh, why isn't the company
Yeah,
paying for this? Because I heard guys saying that like back in the day, like, why is the company not paying for this? And sure, hey, it would be nice, but if you pay for yourself, of course you're going to take it on a bit more. And like I always say this, I'm not the best salesperson in the company, but I keep going. And I think that I started documenting my journey as well on LinkedIn. And I think that people took notice of that. I would post about, hey, I'm going to Toastmasters, not because I want to show off, because I want to, like Gary Vaynerchuk says this thing, document, don't create. And
yeah,
he really means like just document your journey, like what's happening in your day to day and professionally. Like don't just create content for the sake of it.
yeah.
So I started doing that. And of course, then people started taking notice and they knew me even before I was being interviewed. Like some of them knew who I was. I didn't know who they were. So it was quite sort of funny in that aspect. So I found like that social media was then a tool that I use. And it just happened to be that people saw, okay, this guy's investing in himself. He's clearly doing something different. And I mean, even in some interviews, they would ask other people, like, what are you doing like him to invest in yourself? So which was quite funny, you know. And I say that really humbly because, like, I genuinely I'm not the best salesperson in there, but I'm getting the maximum out of myself, and that's all anyone can do.
Well, that's the thing because lots of people out there have talent, but if it's not matched by a work ethic, then talent will actually be overtaken by the people who have the work ethic every single
Yeah.
day of the week.
And,
So
and
the
I'll
other
just, I was just going to say, I'll throw in a football sort of theory here. Alex Ferguson, who managed Manchester United, he said, "You'll show me a player with talent and show me a player with character." And he said, "I'll always choose the player with character." Um,
100%.
which is so true.
100%. And the fact that you've documented that across the social platforms, and particularly on LinkedIn, and when people do their research, they're seeing a multifaceted approach of you, and people get a sense, and you just mentioned it before, that people tend to know you before they even meet you. And so when you then meet them, there's this background they've already got, and when they meet you, it's going to be a match or it's going to be a potential mismatch, which then comes down to, well, actually, have you been a creator for the sake of the creativity, or have you actually documented your journey? Which means when people meet you, it's like, oh yeah, you're Gary.
Exactly.
You're exactly the same as what I've been seeing on all the social media platforms.
Yeah, and this is what someone said to me. He's a good friend now, but he just said like every time I meet you, you've been consistent. Like you haven't changed. Like it's like it is authentic. Like what you see is what you get. Like it's this is me. This is who I am. Not ashamed of it or anything like that. So I think there is that consistency because I often heard like in the company that people would come into the office. Maybe it's like a hiring manager, and he'd watch how people were sort of in their day to day. And then he always said to me, like, when it comes to interviews, then everyone puts on a suit and tie and they're hey, like, look at me. And the coach that I was at the seminar with at the weekend said, like, you can't be. I'm trying to think of a nice word here. You can't be a you know what at the weekend and then be a gentleman on a Monday morning. Like,
That's
so
it.
everything has to be consistent.
Totally. And in the words of John Maxwell, consistency compounds. And consistency as a word is not necessarily the sexiest word, but geez, it compounds. If you do that over a period of time, you'll be in front of so many people, it's not funny.
Yeah,
Um,
it's boring, and like investing, if you do it right, is boring. But like as you said, the compound effect is it's long term focus. Like I mean, you can put money into sort of like get rich quick schemes, but you might fall flat in your face. Whereas if you're consistent over time, everything is good.
and it's a great point. I don't want people listening to this, I don't want them to gloss over that because I often say to sales teams and leaders in particular that there's a camera following your every move. And you've always got to be on. And if you're focused on doing the right thing based on a good set of ethics, good set of values, and you're consistent around that, not pretending to be somebody that you're not, then you know what? You're going to resonate with a large percentage of people. You'll not resonate with some, and that's perfectly okay. But you find your tribe. So you don't have to try to pretend and don't have to try to convince people to like you or to be, you know, to listen to you because it's just like water. You'll find your level.
Yeah, 100%.
Got to do that. So, mate, love to ask you about the book. So, what was it that prompted? I know you've just been talking about documenting your journey. Was it something you just woke up one day and said, "Oh, I think I'll write a book. I'm doing all this other stuff, so why not just write a book?" Or was it something had been brewing for a while?
It's probably something that was brewing in a while, and I dabbled at this before. So I did release like an ebook or a digital copy back in I think it was 2012. And that was good, right? I got a testimonial from Brian Tracy, which he was like one of the original greats in sales, and something just felt off because I felt like okay, that book was more based on theory. Like obviously, I didn't have the quote unquote success because I didn't work for the company, I didn't
Yeah.
make sales, I didn't win competitions, I didn't go off and do challenges with Wim Hof. So I just felt like there was unfinished business, and like genuinely my wife pushed me to do this. She said like you need to do the next book now because it's 10 years later, and I wanted to reverse engineer I guess how I've been successful, like, and almost give that book to the 23 or 24-year-old who was stuck in Australia.
Yeah.
And the who for the book is always you. The who is you from like many years ago, and you're trying to help them solve a problem. So I literally then just said, how am I going to sit down and write this? I was struggling. So I would walk around my neighborhoods in Dubai and leave voice notes to myself, voice to text. And I already formed the 7 chapters in my head around everything that I went through and then moving into this new company, all the different countries that I've been in. And I think everyone has a book in them to a
Yes.
certain extent. And yeah, I just really wanted to get it out there. And then, like I said, my wife and my coach was like, why can't you do this quicker? Like compress the time. Because I gave it like too much time. And then I just went to work at it. When I went to the retreat in Poland, I met a guy who was a voiceover artist and he's also a writer. So I asked him, hey, can you help me write the book? And he was amazing because my first drafts, he said, there's not enough pain in this, Gary. So every chapter starts with pain. Um, and like the thing about this book is it's my truth. Like, so I'm very happy with the book. Like, I obviously highly recommend it because it is my truth. And I do think success leaves clues. And the book isn't my lessons. It's called Built by Lessons, but it's the lessons from the people that I've met on the way. And not just mentors, I call them destiny helpers, which
Hmm.
is a term that my wife told me about, which I'd never heard. And it's like, if you put in the work, like these destiny helpers will come out of nowhere and actually help you alongside your journey. But not just putting in the work, but also like also asking and being curious. Like if you are in the lift and you see someone, like why not just say hello and
Yeah.
maybe ask them a question? Because even at the weekend again, we sort of learned like everyone has a story and it's your job to find out their story. And who knows if their story can help your story in the future as well. So they're just some of the reasons for coming out with the book.
Love that. Love that. And what was the what? Destiny
De-
Chasers?
Destiny helpers.
Destiny Helpers. I
Yeah,
love that. I love that. And it kind of like you said before, when the student's ready, the teacher's going to appear. But and that's often what will happen. And it's people think it's just by chance or it's serendipitous, but no, it's all written. It's all meant to happen. It's
yeah.
all
And
meant to happen.
we're antennas, like, and we're constantly receiving, and it's like receiving. It's like if my twin brother came in with those tickets and I said no, like then I'm not open to receiving. So
Yeah.
another nice saying that I heard as well from my coach Aiden is like the opposite of your pattern is your solution. So like if you're not good at public speaking, the opposite is to actually go to a Toastmasters. And I mean it's so simple, but it's so true. And like don't get me wrong, there's other areas, be it health, wealth, love, or fulfillment, the areas that I'm not, doing the opposite of the pattern. So I think it's just a nice reminder
Yeah.
of what your solution is.
Yeah, and I love the theme throughout this conversation. It's not perfection, it's progress. So if I'm
Exactly.
continuing to make progress, you'll get the help along the way. You got to help yourself as well. You got to have the right mindset, the right attitude, but you'll have the destiny shapers and the destiny helpers to come and help you along the path. Now I know this question might sound, Gary, like uh trying to get your favorite food or your favorite beer or your favorite holiday destination or your favorite child. Is there a favorite part of the book? You mentioned before you were walking around the streets of Dubai doing voice to text, and you had 7 chapters already figured out. Is there a favorite part of the book that you say, you know what, that is my go-to. That is my number one principle.
Yeah, so I was sort of torn between the being and with the breath work with Wim Hof and also the public speaking. And I think probably the public speaking just wins just because I tell that story of how I went through all the trials and tribulation, and there's lots of golden nuggets in there. And then to sort of wrap it up in a bow, I did a speech for my wedding, and I found it like the easiest thing ever. And I had no notes, like no notes whatsoever. And then my uncle sent me a text message after he got back he's from Boston. He flew back to Boston and he found an article in the New York Times. And I'm paraphrasing now, but it basically said like spoken without text, like a good speaker should. And
Mm,
my twin brother did the same for his best man speech. And it was almost that winning moment where I don't need these notes. I'm just going to speak from the heart, from the
yeah,
truth. And that sort of then, if you think about the guy who sweated through the suit to the guy who spoke in front of like 70 people at my wedding without any notes, I think that just showed sort of how far I'd come on the journey.
absolutely. And it also shows what the power of human potential actually is. That is a place that anybody can get to should they choose to, and should they choose to do the work in order to get into a position where you can actually do that.
Yeah, 100%. And I also think when you speak about a topic that you're passionate about, it's way easier.
Yeah,
But then if you're, let's just say you're selling a technology that you're not as passionate about, like how can you make it passionate? For instance, like one of the engineers that I work with, he does like a magic trick before he presents, and that gets the audience warmed up. And no matter what he says after that, he's won. So
yeah.
you know, little things like that. I think how can you make the topic interesting? How can you simplify it? How can you put a nice analogy on it?
Yeah, just be memorable. But
Yeah,
come from a position of I'm here to be of service. I'm not here to win. I'm not here to get you to love me. I'm not here to get you to buy my stuff, even that would be a great outcome. I'm here to be of service.
yeah,
So just go do that. And as you said, it's already happened. So what will be.
yeah. Already done.
So, mate, looking to the future, then you mentioned before you've started or finished a diploma of coaching. As you look forward, obviously there's more books, there's more things for you to do. What does the next 12, 24 plus months look like for you? What's on the horizon?
Yeah, so like I'm an individual contributor in the company, focused on sales, and I absolutely love what I do, love how I work for, love everything about it. But there's definitely a passion for coaching now. So I've been part of a coaching group for the past 2.5 years with different entrepreneurs, and I love being on those calls because I can see the sort of the whites of the eyes go off and insights. And then I decided, thanks to the coach, he recommended a coaching diploma. So I've just finished that. It was online in Ireland, basically. So that was lovely to have the sprinkle of home. And my next sort of, I guess, phase is I'm looking to sort of set up a coaching practice outside of what I do day to day, and just take on a couple of clients, because I did 20 plus hours of pro bono coaching, and that was absolutely amazing. And coaching is so different to what I thought. I mean, I
Mm,
thought coaching was more on the mentoring side of things where you're given the answers, but in actual fact, it's not. You're there to listen, you're there to pull the answers out of them. You're completely non-directive. And something amazing happens when you create a safe space and someone says something that's been inside their head for years maybe, and then they have a massive insight. And I heard that you always hear the same thinking outside the box, and I saw something recently where it's like if you're always inside the box, you can't see the label, and the label is like your
mm.
sort of your authentic self. So like, what's going on in here? And if I can pull those answers out and give you the space to see your own label, then that's more of the fulfillment side of things for me. It really is. It just gives me like a really good sense when I work with people like that, and probably people who are more early in career are
Mm.
stuck in their career like I was obviously back a few years ago.
Yeah, love it, love it. So, mate, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Thank you for jumping on. For people who wanting to learn more about you and connect, and obviously get a copy of the book, where's the best place for them to connect, Gary?
Yeah, the best place is probably LinkedIn. So Gary Daly Sales is my handle, if that's what you call it on LinkedIn. And then
Yep.
if you go to amazon.com.au for Australia, or obviously .com for the US, etc., if you type in built by lessons and then Gary Daly, then that's where you'll find the book. And yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Always love meeting different people online, or even if they come to Dubai, I'm always able to come for a coffee. It's a really good place like that. You'll meet like people, entrepreneurs, different people. It doesn't matter. So yeah, I would love to meet anyone.
Excellent, excellent. So, if there was one parting piece of advice, somebody listening to this who may be early in their career, in their sales career, wanting to move towards a sales leadership role, or just quite not quite sure that they're maximizing their potential, what would be, say, a lasting piece of advice you'd give them to start to work on?
I would say get curious. And I always sort of reference that scene in there's a movie called The Pursuit of Happiness, based on Chris Gardner's life. And Will Smith, who's playing the actor, is walking past this Ferrari, and he stops the guy and he sort of says, like, what do you do and how can I do it type thing. And I'll always remember during COVID when no one wanted to even look at each other. Me and my wife just moved into sort of a new apartment, and we noticed like the neighbor, and he had like a nice Tesla, and a Tesla where I'm from is like, this guy clearly something good has gone on. And he was like I guess, at a later stage in his career, and I'm taking out the bins, and he just happens to be there. And of course, I think of that moment, and I'm like, I'm just curious, like, what do you do? Turns out he was a wealth management CEO of a company based in Ireland, which he's now sold, by the way.
Mm.
But then that was sort of okay, interesting. Like I'm not really in that sort of area, so I'd love to learn more about this, and I'm happy to pay you, by the way. And he said, no, like I'll take you for a coffee. And then I started to learn about like investing, dollar cost averaging, index funds, all that type of stuff, just from being curious. And I always say, like, there's a saying, curiosity killed the cat, but it can actually set you free, really. So I think just being curious is the key thing.
I love that. I love that. And it's so pertinent that you've mentioned that because I look forward into the future. And I reckon that's one of the biggest differentiators that leaders are going to have against their competition is curiosity. So, love, great way to finish, mate. So thank you. And can I thank you for all the work you've done, the book you've written, but also can I also thank you for the challenges you've gone through which you wouldn't have been here and shared with what you have today. So thank you so much, and all the best to you. And thanks for being a guest on the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for letting me share my story as well. And I really enjoyed the conversation. So amazing.
Brilliant. Thanks, mate. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com, and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.